This is a 2A for Today Action Alert. My name is Zoe Warren, and I'm the host of 2A for Today. 2A for Today is a program where we explore all things Second Amendment, all things that protect, threaten, and violate the Second Amendment rights of all Americans. So today I'm in the studio with Peter Rykowski. Peter Rykowski is a research associate with the John Birch Society. He's a writer, and he's giving us a legislative update, a legislative alert, an action alert for all of us who are concerned about our Second Amendment rights being transgressed. So Peter, hello, welcome to the show.
Hey, Zoe, it's great to be with you.
Man, I'm so glad that you came on the show today to kind of let us know what's going on. I got your alert in the email, and I wanted to make sure that we had a good understanding of some of that stuff that's coming down the pipe from the cesspool there in D.C.
Yeah, there are several very extreme, blatantly unconstitutional gun control bills that are currently introduced in Congress. And the Democrats in control of Congress want to actually enact some of those bills into law. So I'm going to go through some of those, especially the most extreme one, because it really shows which direction the Democrats want to go and what they ultimately want to achieve. And there's H.R. 127, which is introduced by Sheila Jackson Lee, who's a Democrat from Texas. And just to give a sort of a sense of how she stands constitutionally, her Freedom Index score is 23%, which is abysmal. But H.R. 127, which she's introduced...
That's better than Lindsey Graham, isn't it?
That's true. But Lindsey Graham is not a high bar. But H.R. 127, which is a really draconian bill. I mean, it would create a national firearm registry that any law enforcement official, that any member of the military could access at any moment. And not only would it tell them who's owning a gun and who isn't, but also would tell them where the firearms are stored in someone's house. So if the government would want to confiscate these guns, it would be a piece of cake to do so. So
why would they need to know where my guns are stored? I mean,
there's absolutely no reason. They don't want anyone to exercise the God-given right to self-defense. So by creating a national firearm registry, it's easier for them to violate that right. And there's even more in this bill. It's not just that, even though this is bad enough. It would create a national license simply to own a gun. And if you want this license, you would need to take, number one, a training course. You would need a psychological evaluation. What does that mean? And you would need to pay $800 for quote-unquote firearm insurance. And probably the worst of all, this license, you got to renew it every 1 to 3 years.
Now, who gets? I'm sure they got lots of conservative Christians on their psych evaluation team, right?
Yeah, I mean, what this is going to do, they're going to pack these psychological evaluation teams with leftists, and then anyone professing, Christian faith, conservative values are going to be found to be unfit to own a gun. And then this license will be denied, and then they will be banned from defending themselves. And going on with what's in this bill, it would also ban any ammunition magazine that's more than 10 rounds, so severely restricting your right to own ammunition. And last but not least, if you violate any of these provisions, you could spend up to 40 years in jail or pay a fine of up to $150,000.
This had to have been written by a circus clown.
Yeah.
Because it's not possible that they think this is going to pass. That's so ridiculous.
But here's the thing about legislation like this. Not only do Democrats want this ultimately, but when someone introduces a bill as extreme as this, it makes any other gun control bill appear to be reasonable to your typical establishment Republican. So if you have, a background check bill, which several senators, including some Republicans, want right now, or banning so-called assault weapons, or things like that. Those bills suddenly become reasonable, quote unquote, and then it's easier for that to pass. So that's what the Democrats in Congress are using to infringe upon our God-given right to self-defense.
And that is a tactic right there. That kind of leads me into my next question. It's not possible that those radical bills are going to get passed. I mean, I don't think that's the only one. There's a couple of more I saw on your alert too. But there's no way that those radical bills are going to get passed. So the strategy, the Hegelian strategy, like we talked about in our last show, is to do just that, to do something that is so radically disruptive and chaotic that any step back looks like a gift to us or something that looks moderate and it looks like common sense and we should compromise. Those are all their buzzwords. But talk to me a little bit about how who they're trying to tap right now. I talked about this in the last show too, but who are they trying to tap that you know of in Congress that may be considered vulnerable that we should call or reach out to and warn?
Yeah, well, there's an effort right now to do just that. There's a Democrat Senator, Chris Murphy, who's extremely passionate about, taking away our Second Amendment and banning pretty much any gun that exists. He's talking right now to Republican Senators Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina about a so-called background check bill that would make it illegal to freely purchase guns from relatives or from gun stores. And the strategy is what I just outlined. When you see bills this extreme, and then you introduce a bill that's not so extreme, background checks, which is blatantly unconstitutional as well, then you have senators like Pat Toomey, Lindsey Graham, who don't have any backbone, suddenly supporting legislation like this or considering to support legislation like this. So it's those two senators, then also Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, Mitt Romney of Utah. Those are some senators who we really need to watch out for.
The America Last Coalition.
That's right.
It's interesting, too, that I think there's one radical bill that seems moderate, too, as the Charleston loophole bill. Are you familiar with that bill at all and the number on that bill?
I believe you're referring to H.R. 8, and then there's also a similar bill, H.R. 1446, which would radically expand background checks and, make it, criminalize all sorts of, constitutional transactions, between relatives, going to a gun store and buying a gun. And those two bills, they've passed the House. All they need to do is pass the Senate.
And it's funny to me because what they do is they'll get the America Last Coalition, this handful of anti-Trump, anti-constitutional legislation. They'll get a handful of these guys to sign on, and then they can call it bipartisan.
That's right. That's what they always do.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for the update. What can we do? What does JBS suggest that we do in order to make sure that we are always aware that we get these action alerts and that we can stop these radical gun bills?
Yeah, the John Birch Society, what we do is we send out legislative updates on bills like this, like these extreme gun control bills and bills on any other topic that's very important to preserving our constitutional God-given freedoms. So if you go to jbs.org and you go under the tab titled Act Now, you can see our legislative alerts and you can sign up for email updates and also for text message updates. To receive those on a regular basis, you can stay on top of what's going on in Congress and also on what's going on in your state legislators.
Outstanding. Peter Rykowski, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. We really appreciate your help and your diligence because if we're going to keep liberty, it's going to be maintained by eternal vigilance, right?
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you for watching this 2A for Today Action Alert. that concludes our program. But again, in the coming weeks and months, 2A for Today will be talking to experts, scholars, trainers, and all forms of gun right activists and Second Amendment proponents to answer the many questions that we all have and unpack the various laws and trespasses of our rights that have already been enacted and those that are on the horizon. Again, if the Second Amendment's important to you, make sure to subscribe to the New American Magazine and get on the top daily headline mailing list so that you get an email alert anytime we upload a video or stream a live event. And share these videos with your family and friends who feel the same, or those that are riding the fence between liberty and tyranny who need a little more convincing. You've been watching 2A for Today. My name is Zoe. Post your comments or questions, and we'll try to address as many as we can, as fast as we can in the coming weeks and months. Thank you for watching 2A for Today.